The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. I'm your host, Andy McNeil. It is Wednesday, January 15th, just 2 games in the NHL tonight. And joining me, as always, is DFO's Nick Martin. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Yeah. Tough slate for me last night. I feel like the New York Rangers of the handicapping world right now is good the last few years, terrible this year. So got to get things turned around.
Well, the Rangers have been, showing signs of life lately. Obviously, they took Colorado to overtime on Tuesday and managed to get a point out of that one. But the Avs, despite their, low-scoring ways as of late, still managed to get the win. Thankfully, although I didn't get the Brady Tkachuk anytime goal that I was looking for, the Montreal Canadiens, my favorite team by obviously have come through for me big time as of late, and that was another good performance for them on Tuesday. I was a little bit worried there in the early going. Shots were pretty heavily in favor of the Utah Hockey Club, but obviously they had a big power play advantage early in the game, and that evened out as the game went on. And Montreal controlled play through the final 40 minutes, managed to win that game 5-3. So the Habs stay hot, and Lane Hudson had a big night. So he's making an even stronger case, I guess, for his Calder Trophy chances. He currently has the second best odds in the Calder Trophy market. I mean, that might differ depending on where you look around, but I doubt it, as Macklin Celebrini currently the favorite at Bet365, minus 270. Hudson 2-1. He was at 25-1 earlier this season, so has been quite a move for Hudson. But I don't think I'd be recommending a bet on him at this point, considering just how hard it is for defensemen to win the Calder Trophy, especially when you've got guys like Matvei Michkov and Macklin Celebrini going along in the race with you. It looks like Celebrini's award to win right now, but you still got your eyes on a bit of a long shot here, eh?
Yeah, I think there's a little value left with Dustin Wolf at 55-1. I do think, obviously, part of that number is that Celebrini and Hudson are making such a tough case. So I get that. It's not like I'm thinking this is a smash play, and I do think you need to get FanDuel's 55-1 because some books, Bet365 is at 25-1. But the thing is,
SIA's at 40-1.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think I don't think he's that far behind. He might need one of the other guys definitely to slow down a fair bit or potentially even get injured. But I think we're getting a decent number to target that because of what he's meant to the Flames. They're winning at 113-point pace when he's in the net. He's been one of the best goalies in the entire league. And I think if they make a push for the playoffs, we could kind of see him have one of these Hudson-like surges right now, because we have seen Hudson go from 30-1 to 2-1, like you said, over, I think it's been about a month since he was 30-1. So
yeah,
obviously been an incredible stretch of play. And then I think the other thing to like for Wolf here is he really hasn't had that many starts thus far. I think the Flames were kind of trying to boost Vladar's trade value, giving him 50% of the starts early on. I feel like at this point, you'd think they're giving up on that idea. I don't think anyone's buying Vladar for anything. And I feel like if they continue to hang around in this playoff race down the stretch, they'll start to really give Wolf 3 out of 4 starts or whatever it is. And then hopefully he can continue to play at this level and people really take notice if they hang around in the playoff race. Yeah. So yeah, I do think that there's a little value with Wolf. And even just listening to kind of the average analyst rankings, the average fans take, I do think people would probably be pretty surprised that the number's that long. So yeah, I think it's a decent time to buy on him and hope the Flames can keep it up and that he starts getting a bigger share of all the starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of great goaltending, Jeremy Swayman, 43 saves on Tuesday to shut down the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, the Bruins jumped out to that early 4-0 lead. Got a bit of I shouldn't say a big advantage when Braden Point was healthy scratched, he apparently missed a team meeting prior to the game at some point. And that was enough for John Cooper to throw away the 2 points, I guess. So, but that's back-to-back 40-plus save performances for Swayman. Of course, he stopped 40 against the Florida Panthers as well. So, I mean, after a pretty rough start to the season, he's starting to look like the guy that Boston expected him to be when they signed him to that big contract. Obviously, with that holdout at the start of the year, but he's been pretty good as of late. You look at his game logs, all but one game dating back to December 28th when the Bruins returned from their holiday break. All but one game, he's had a save percentage of 900 or better. So pretty good from Jeremy Swayman, and they'll help the Bruins hopefully make the playoffs so that they can, maybe knock out the Toronto Maple Leafs before they bow out themselves. Because we, all of us Bruins fans would love nothing more than that. But I do want to circle back to Montreal quickly because my dad is a big Boston Bruins fan. I've inherited the pain and suffering of being a Bruins fan. Although it's been pretty good the last 15 years, I guess. But he's really having a hard time watching Montreal kind of rise up the standings here because I think he's really enjoyed watching the Habs suffer over the last few years. But me personally, I want the Canadians to be competitive again because there's just nothing better than, in my eyes, than when Boston and Montreal are both competitive and going head to head in important games, meaningful games, and hopefully maybe someday soon we'll see the Bruins and Canadians back matched up in a playoff series. So that would be something that I'll look forward to. But let's get into tonight's slate here. We've got, of course, the Carolina Hurricanes and the Buffalo Sabres, both coming back off of 2 and 3 day breaks, respectively, and the Edmonton Oilers in Minnesota to take on the very banged up Minnesota Wild. But let's start with the Carolina game because I do have a player prop that I like in this one. Seth Jarvis, I think he's a pretty appealing bet tonight to register 3 shots on goal or more at plus 115. If you can shop around, you might find some better odds on him out there, but plus 115 is a pretty good price, in my opinion. That's available at Bet365. He's registered 3 or more shots in 6 of his last 9 games. He's also got 4 goals in his last 5 outings, so maybe consider that anytime goal look as well, because I mean the Sabres, they rank among the bottom 10 teams in shots against, and only 5 teams have allowed more goals per 60 minutes than the Sabres this season. Carolina, the second best team when it comes to generating shots and expected goals, and only 4 teams have scored more goals per 60 minutes than the Hurricanes this season. Buffalo hasn't been very good at home this season either, 8-14 straight up year to date. But then again, the Carolina Hurricanes have not been the greatest road team, either 9-12 straight up, with just 2 wins in their last 11 road games. So I think that's something to take into account there as well. I'd say that last meeting against the Kraken was maybe the Sabres' ugliest loss of the season because they, jumped out to that 2-goal lead, brought it into the second period, and then allowed 6 unanswered goals to give the Kraken the win. And I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that.
We've
The
had
Kraken,
a few of those, though.
The Kraken are leading the league right now in comeback wins, if I'm not mistaken.
That is crazy. I know the Caps are up there too, and the Sabres got to be up there for most collapses because I've been on them
Yeah.
on several, and I know the fan base has really been getting on how many blown leads they've had. I had them in both those 3-goal collapses versus Colorado, so those definitely stick out in my mind. But yeah, and I know the Sabres have the most losses after scoring the first goal. They've actually scored the first goal in more than half their games, and their record is what it is. So yeah, they've not been good with a lead, which is kind of interesting because you'd think ideally that's one of the things they'd be good with a coach like Lindy Ruff, but I feel like it's probably a little bit of the opposite, maybe getting a little complacent and going into a shell too much with some of these leads.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Sabres are well rested, as I mentioned, coming in 3 days off heading into this game, but Carolina coming off a 2-day break. So seems pretty unlikely that the schedule is going to factor much into this game here. But we will see. The Hurricanes, I mean, of course, dropped that game on Sunday, despite closing as a minus 526 money line favorite against the Ducks. They outshot Anaheim 37-20, and it's going to be Dustin Tokarski in goal tonight for the Hurricanes as well. So obviously he posted a shutout, I believe, in his that was his last outing, right? In against the Canucks.
Yeah, and the Canucks had nothing. I was actually a little
What,
interested in
14
the
shots,
over
I think.
in this game. Yeah, and I took the Canucks in that game, and no,
Stop
like
beating yourself up, Nick. It's
yeah.
okay, man.
Oh no, I'm just complaining about the Canucks. Like I don't think I watched the whole game. I don't know if Tokarski had to make a save. Anyone would have not made any
Even me.
decent NHL goaltender. Yeah. But yeah, I think I was kind of leaning towards the over here with Tokarski. I think Carolina's offense is flying a little under the radar right now, and the power play has been really bad over the last stretch of games. But that has been with it almost comes exactly down to the date that Gostisbehere got injured, and now he's back. So I think with a low total of 5.5, that looks definitely very tempting to me.
Yeah, the Sabres also 23, 14, and 6 to the over this season. So that definitely works in your favor there. The other game we have on tap tonight is the Edmonton Oilers and the Minnesota Wild. We can get a little bit into the MVP talk a little bit later, maybe a little bit of Selke talk as well before the end of the show. But yeah, since dropping their first two games following the holiday break, the Oilers have won 6 of 7, which is a pretty good sign heading into this matchup against the Minnesota Wild. They're kicking off a 3-game road trip before they return home for a season-long 6-game homestand, so they could make up a lot of ground. And who knows if the Vegas Golden Knights slip a little bit here in the next week or so, maybe Edmonton can finally get into the top spot in the Pacific Division. They obviously haven't had much success against the Wild on the road. But they did end a streak of 6 straight road losses in Minnesota with a dominant 7-1 win back on December 12th. That tied the season series at 1 game apiece. So this game's going to serve as the rubber match, final meeting between these two teams in the regular season. And, you know, given Edmonton's current form and Minnesota's injuries, it's not looking good for the Wild here. That said, the Oilers have not won consecutive games in Minnesota in the Connor McDavid era, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. They are 4-9 straight up in road games against the Wild, dating back to the start of the 2015-16 season. I know there's probably a couple in there, at least one, because McDavid did not play in that game prior to the Heritage Classic last year. I think that was the first one that he missed when he was out with that injury. So there's definitely some in there where the Oilers weren't at full strength either. But yeah, according to Evolving Hockey, Edmonton controlled nearly 57% of the shot attempts and 60% of the expected goals at even strength during their last visit to Minnesota. And that really wasn't a one-off. I mean, since that game, they have posted the best even strength expected goals percentage in the league, 58.6%. And in 9 of their last 14 games, the Oilers have also finished with an even strength shot share of 58% or higher. No team has generated more shots on goal per 60 minutes than the Oilers over the past month, and only 4 teams have scored more goals. And the Oilers also rank 11th in goals against. But there is going to be a switch in the crease tonight. I was expecting Stuart Skinner to get the start. I mean, he's recorded shutouts in 2 of his last 3 starts, part of a really strong run where he has held opponents to 2 or fewer goals in 12 of his last 17 outings. But it's going to be Calvin Pickard getting the start tonight. So not sure how that has affected things in the betting market. Edmonton was climbing up there at one point with minus 221 odds I saw at Pinnacle. But now with this change, Edmonton is minus 207 at Pinnacle right now. So there's been a bit of a shift, but still big favorites and still likely to win this matchup by the looks of things. I'll get to my bet in a little bit, but how do you see this one shaping up, Mick?
Yeah, I didn't end up with too much here. I like the Wild, and I think part of the reason that the goaltending confirmations haven't really moved the numbers that much is then there was later confirmation that the Wild aren't going to get some of the guys back that were apparently at morning skate moving around pretty good. So that kind of sucks. I still kind of lean with the Wild. I feel like it's not the worst spot to buy on them with Pickard in here, and Gustafsson's been so sharp. So I am cautiously optimistic that they can find a way here, but I was definitely hoping that they would end up getting 1 or 2 more bodies back.
Yeah, and Edmonton, as I wrote about heading into Saturday's game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Was it Saturday or was that I can't remember.
That's
Right about
Saturday. Yeah.
I've wrote about 40, 4 Oilers games this season. They all kind of blur together. But I did want to, I did highlight heading into that game because the Oilers were massive money line favorites, obviously, that they haven't been profitable this season, whether we're talking about the money line or the puck line. Of course, that win over the Los Angeles Kings on Monday did get them over the hump into the profitable range in terms of the money line. But it was another close game, and Edmonton has played a lot more close games this season than they did last season. They have not been a profitable team on the puck line. In fact, they've only covered the puck line once as big favorites, minus 200 or
They've been
more. So,
horrible at hitting empty nets, like notably
yeah,
at hitting
yeah,
empty nets, and obviously that plays a big role in the puck line. So,
for
and
sure.
that hurt Leon too in the MVP race. He has like 9 less empty net points than McKinnon, and
Yeah.
that's definitely made a bit of a difference.
Yeah, speaking of Draisaitl, that's where I'm going with my pick for tonight's game. He has recorded 1 point, or at least 1 point, in 17 of his last 18 games and 34 of 43 games overall this season. So he's, pretty much a virtual lock to factor in on the scoring most nights. And while he's only logged 3 multi-point performances over his last 11 games, he's recorded 2 or more points in 22 games this season. So that's about 51%. And with Minnesota's injuries, especially on the back end here, I think it's going to be pretty difficult to contain Draisaitl. So I like Draisaitl to register over 1.5 points at plus 125 odds. That's at Bet365. Plus 121 at Pinnacle is a pretty good price as well. I think this is a solid play. Obviously, Jared Spurgeon hasn't played since December 31st, doesn't appear close to returning. And they lost both Jonas Brodin and Brock Faber in a game on January 7th. So it looked like Faber might return tonight, but it has been confirmed that he will not be back in the lineup tonight, right, Nick?
Yeah, I think he was the only one I didn't see for sure, but Kaprizov, Brodin, and Spurgeon are definitely all going to remain out. So
Yeah,
one way or
yeah. The
the other,
Wild
they've had some brutal luck again, second year in a row.
injury luck, you mean, right?
Injury luck, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd say that.
Yeah, because they've been pretty good this season, and obviously they managed to win the first meeting against Edmonton, beating Edmonton 5-3 on November 21st, and that was through the lens of expected goals according to Evolving Hockey. That's Edmonton's second worst performance of the season. Through the lens of that metric. The Wild owned 70% of the expected goals in that game, and Edmonton only has one game worse than that against Jake's Montreal Canadiens. However, since losing Kirill Kaprizov to injury on December 23rd, the Wild ranked 25th in expected goals at even strength, with only Anaheim, San Jose, and Chicago posting worse shot shares at even strength during that stretch. And additionally, while the Wild graded out as the best defensive team at even strength for much of the season, they've slipped to the bottom 10 in goals against per 60 minutes over their last 9 games, largely due to these injuries that we're talking about on the blue line. So, big problems in Minnesota right now defensively. But as you mentioned before we got going here live on the show, that this goaltending matchup does favor the Wild with Philip Gustafsson versus Calvin Pickard. So we'll see how that plays out. They have only allowed 4 or more goals. Minnesota, has only allowed 4 or more goals in 13 out of 44 games this season, but they've given up 15 goals combined in their last 4 games. So things are definitely slipping with the injuries on the back end here.
Yeah, and even Kaprizov's been excellent defensively this year. He definitely helps them suppress chances and carry play. So his loss is definitely hurting all over the ice.
Yeah, and obviously in the Edmonton and LA game, I had bet on Connor McDavid to score an anytime goal, and I was really thankful that came through for me. But it wouldn't have if it not for an unbelievable defensive play by Leon Draisaitl, and we've seen a lot from him, or a lot of that from him this season. But he's not really in consideration for the Selke right now, and that seems like Alexander Barkov's trophy to lose. He is a minus 230 favorite to win the Frank J. Selfie Trophy. Nico Hischier is in second place at plus 375, and another Florida Panther, Sam Reinhart plus 450. Draisaitl sitting at 16-1 right now to win the Selke Trophy. If I'm not mistaken, Draisaitl had better odds earlier, or has that, or am I? I'm probably thinking about the Hart Trophy here, to be honest. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that Leon isn't getting as much love for his defensive play this season as maybe some people think he should.
That takes time, though. That's kind of the 2 years we've
True.
had this award market, that's kind of the point. I've made a ton, and right now it's 2 of the 3 favorites. Matthews has fallen off, from his preseason a lot. I thought he had a good chance, but obviously the injury,
Yeah.
really has hurt his case, but this worked for me last year, just banking on Barkov and Hischier, and same thing this year. I just feel like it takes so much time for people to adjust their lens defensively. I actually think Kopitar at 100-1. We've talked about if you could bet on nominations. I would be interested in that. I don't really know. It's probably actually a fair price, but I feel like it's surprising to me that he's the 9th favorite and at 100-1. I thought he's been really good for a Kings team that's excellent defensively, but um, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty tough for anyone to surpass Barkov with how he's played and the reputation he has.
Yeah, but speaking of award season, right now Connor Hellebuck is the favorite to win the Hart Trophy at 3-1. That'll probably vary from sportsbook to sportsbook, but despite the empty net stats that you said about or mentioned about Nathan McKinnon there, Draisaitl has the second best odds at plus 325. We talked about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was around 6-1, was he not?
I think it was last week he was 6.5-1. So yeah, that definitely swung quick. And I don't know, it'd be crazy to see if it was Hellebuck, but I actually am kind of coming around to thinking that maybe that would be who I would vote for right now. He'd be the
Yeah.
first goalie since Carey Price in 2014-15 to win it if he does pull it off. And I don't know. I think the more like I watch the Jets, they look good, but they don't look amazing. And I feel like
Yeah.
if you took Hellebuck away, I don't know, it might hurt them more than any of these other teams without their top guys.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I think, head and shoulders above every other goaltender in the NHL right now. And I mean, while you look at you can look at the last couple of seasons, and there have been some other goaltenders that have performed maybe as well or in a similar way to Hellebuck, but nobody's done it as consistently as he has over these last few years. So I think right now he's the number one goalie in hockey, and yeah, he's looking like it right now.
yeah, he's been insane. I wish I should have ran his betting stats too, because the last 2 years, his ROI is just crazy. Uh, really has. And I think part of it is the Jets underlying stats always just tend to be quite middling. So, or upper mid, whatever it is. And they're just winning games at such a ridiculous rate with him in the net that it has been. I'm sure there's some people out there that have just been betting him every start and they've just been cleaning up. Hasn't really been
Yeah.
me, but it's been a pretty great strategy the last 2 years.
Yeah, so Edmonton is going to be back in action tomorrow against the Colorado Avalanche. So it will be Stuart Skinner getting the start in Colorado. Um, but they're the only team that is going to be back to back on Thursday. We've got a big slate on Thursday. I haven't had quite enough time this morning to really look into things, so I'm going to save my thoughts on Thursday's games for tomorrow's show here on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel. But I understand you had a look that you wanted to get out there ahead of tomorrow's slate.
Yeah, I have 2 that we'll put out there now. I think that to stay with the Oilers, the FanDuel has that total at a juiced 5.5 minus 134. I think that over is a good bet. I get that Blackwood's been excellent for the Avs. Skinner is obviously going to start that game after sitting tonight. So solid goaltending. But I still feel like 5.5 with these 2 offenses and the way that the Avs like to play. I'm not that sold that they've been that great defensively. Numbers
Yeah.
wise, they've still been a middle of the pack team. So I think the Oilers are going to get their looks. But I think that I don't want to say Edmonton's defensive flaws because they've been pretty great defensively, but I just don't know that we'll see them completely shut down the Avs in this game. So I thought 5.5 looked quite low.
Yeah, and
Even
speaking
in
of
this game,
defensive,
5.5.
the Oilers' defense, I almost left a big one out there. Matthias Ekholm is going to be, I think, a game time decision tonight for Edmonton's game in Minnesota. So we'll see. Um, just how that impacts the Oilers tonight, whether he can play or not. Yeah, he's going to be a game time decision on Wednesday. So I guess that's that's a good sign that he's a game time decision. So I mean, if he doesn't play tonight, chances are he might be in the lineup on Thursday. But we will see, and that could leave a big hole on the Oilers blue line for sure.
Yeah, definitely thought that one looked a little low. I think we'll probably see sixes tomorrow with even like maybe minus 115 to the over. And then the other one that I liked is the Flames in the game that I faded. Was pretty heavy on the Blues last night. I was pretty sure the opening lines of where it's at now were off. They closed at minus 180. It was a really close game. I thought the Flames actually played quite well. And that was a Vladar game, which he played fine, but their record and in his starts is just horrible. Like we've talked about it a lot here with Wolf in, they're winning games at a ridiculous rate. With Vladar in, they're one of the league's worst teams. And now we get plus 122 with the Flames rested after having just seen the way this game went when the Blues were in a much more favorable scheduling spot last time around. So I think we'll probably see a coin flip type games in terms of the run of play. And now you get Wolf in there for the Flames. So I think that the current plus 122 looks a little long. I'm kind of happy to take my chances that we see a really comparable game and that the Flames find a way with their better starter in the net.
You almost never see this happen on the NHL schedule where a team will, stick around for 3 days in the same city to play 2 games. I can't remember the last time I saw this happen. So it's a very unique situation. Very unique situation.
Or I guess they weren't. Yeah, you're right. Because the back-to-back in the same city is definitely very rare. And I feel like it's just stale from a fan perspective. I don't mind the home and home. It sucks from a rating perspective because now it's like, let's sit here and turn around another, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We just saw, and I feel like all you can really, discuss is what happened in the last game
and the goaltending change.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just it is a weird way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough sometimes. Like I've expressed it many times throughout the season that I've as hard as I try to to present different information on each Oilers game day preview. It gets, it's pretty tough not to feel like you're kind of being redundant.
But sometimes the most important notes are the most important notes game after game. So it's
true
like,
enough, yeah.
You do put all the C notes out there just because you want to shake it up. I feel you for sure.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, 2 games late today, but I think we had a pretty good show. So that pretty much wraps things up for today's episode. Still getting people reaching out about the podcast. So you'll have to look for the new feed, no longer on the old Puck Portfolio feed. And as well, the YouTube channel. I had one message yesterday saying, "Man, they're really burying you on this YouTube channel." And I said, "I don't think you're on the right YouTube channel because we're not on the Daily Face Off YouTube channel. We're on the DFO Fantasy and Betting channel. But of course, we're streaming live on the Daily Face Off Twitter account on X. So you can watch us there as well and engage all you want. But if you do want to get some questions in or comments, best to do it on YouTube, and Jake can maybe direct those towards us. But thanks for tuning in again. We will be back on Thursday to break down a big slate in the NHL. My bets for Wednesday are Leon Draisaitl to go over 1.5 points at plus 125. And I'm also on Seth Jarvis to go over 2.5 shots at plus 115. Nick, you've got any bets for today, or are you just looking at tomorrow's slate?
I have bet the Wild myself, but I was counting on better injury news, so I'll put that out there, but I don't love it. And then, the ones tomorrow, I think getting the Flames in now is a good idea. I feel like that game is going to close closer after the opposite last time out. And then I like the Oilers game to go over 5.5. So, I think those are good ones to lock in now. We'll revisit tomorrow, hopefully gain some line value overnight.
For sure. A little bit of everything on today's show. So until Thursday, good luck with your bets and enjoy the games.